Hey everybody, this is Gary. I'm here with Frank Lopez. Frank, how are you?
Good, Gary. How are you?
I'm good. So, you say you want to talk about what do you want to talk about today? I mean, I don't know how to
Well,
phrase it.
I had so many topics that I thought would be worth mentioning, but there's something that is just, that I think is on a lot of people's minds, and this is post-election.
Yeah, let's talk
We
about
know,
president.
yes, when we know who won. Um,
Yeah, we have Donald
and
Trump again. That is, I think, first time in history where we have a president that didn't get elected, and then after one term he comes back again. I think this is historical.
yeah, it is on a number of levels, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on how historical significance of it. I'd like to talk about, what you and I are focused on, which is real estate.
Real estate.
What is that?
How does that
What
affect real estate then?
Yeah, exactly. What could we expect? And my first thought was, okay, well, what can we expect for the next 4 years? And my answer is, I have no idea. And the reason I say that is that it's 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 impractical to try to predict the next 4 years. It just doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. So let's keep it very short term.
Okay.
And short term meaning, what to expect in real estate. Um, for the first 6 months and 12 months at post election, because
Well,
that's
let me tell you what I think. I
okay.
think that because of this, after every election, every president wants to make an impact. So it's going to be a lot of fanfare. He's going to try to perhaps alleviate alleviate the economy by giving a lot of like ease up on the regulations. Specific to real estate, maybe he will try to have the Federal Reserve to drop the interest rate so that there's more stimulus, at least in the foreseeable first 12 months. I think there is don't they have like a first 100 days of presidency where they actually review what they did? I think that's what they're gonna do as the president, where they're gonna say, well, specifically to real estate, drop the interest rate. And when it comes to springtime next year, usually around March, we have up in real estate transactions. It's going to be more movement, more jobs, and then that's the appeal of I would say economic movement. What do you think?
I think you're wrong.
Oh, bring it
and,
to
and
me.
yeah, and no, and I think you're wrong in terms of timing.
Okay.
um Everything you said, I think, makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
but again, I think that right now, people are asking me, when people ask me about real estate, they're not asking me what the market is going to do or where it's going to be in 2 years, um, or 3 years or 4 years. If somebody asks you or me, because we're in the business, people want to know about now, which is why I think that we want to keep or at least I'd like to keep the discussion at short term meaning for 6 months to a year. What do we expect there? And what you mentioned, agreed, will likely happen, but it ain't going to happen overnight. Um, and there's going to be a transition period. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think for the short term, and this is one thing I wanted to bring up. There's an article that I read. This is in Fortune magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and this actually was published on October 31st. So it was the
Mm-hmm.
week before the election. And I'm going to read it to you. So it says, the anticipation of a Trump win is sending mortgage rates soaring. Top economists say scorching inflation is very likely to go with it. So again, short term, um, we know, or at least Fortune is saying that rates are likely to go up, and the reason I bring up rates is, I mean, that's the big factor. I think that's the one thing that really has influenced what real
Mm-hmm.
estate has done.
Mm-hmm.
And just an FYI, I checked with a good friend of mine, Phil Chenier. Shout out to my buddy Phil. he's been in the mortgage business for, oh God, forever.
Hmm.
Good guy out in Orange County. If you need a good lender, he's like he very experienced and knows does a great job. Anyway, I checked with him and I asked him. I sent him a text this morning, and I said, Phil, post election, what are rates doing? And his response, and I'm not going to read it to you, but I could. I just don't want to look for it. It
Hmm.
says rates up big time. Oh, why? I that's well, again, that's I could go back to that article that Fortune mentioned, and Fortune mentioned that in the short term that they are, and I don't want to go into the specifics of it because it'll take a while to discuss it, but and our audience can go in and and do research for Fortune magazine October 31st, and they'll see
Okay,
the
so let me
article
ask you
there.
this though. Since
So,
interest rate
but
going
let
to
me
be
let me
high,
well,
yeah.
hold on. Let me just finish my point. In there, they cite, that there are just a number of economists that predict that in the short term, that rates will go up, the inflation will go up, and rates will go up. So that's their article. It discusses that. So, and that's why you asked me, well, why are rates going up? Why have they gone up? Well, it looks like the markets are basing their anticipation on what everybody expects, which is at least short term, an increase in inflation, not a decrease. And if there's an increase in inflation, what happens?
Well, you need to keep the rates high so that people stop spending.
Right,
Yeah, this way you can
right.
keep it low. I agree. I think that interest rate has to be high. At least I would say for if you want mortgage, I wouldn't want mortgage to actually go any lower because that's going to keep property prices going any higher. Like after the pandemic, properties went up 40%. And let's say that your house was worth like 700,000 in LA, now it's worth 1 million. And that is a 6%. If they were to drop at 5, how much your house is going to be worth? At least, another what, 1.1, 1.2. At least if you keep it at 6%, it's not going to drop, it's going to stay high. Not a good thing, not ideal, but that's the best we can do. Properties are not going to go any lower. So
Well,
we kind of
yeah,
messed up, but the only thing we can do is only keep it high.
okay, but that's why the market really slowed down in the last, I mean, look, you're right. After the pandemic, during pandemic, after pandemic, rates, I mean, the real estate market, crazy, just
Yeah,
going crazy. Because, and why wouldn't it? I mean, if you can get 3%,
yeah,
you had this perfect scenario where you had buyers that can get a 3% interest rate, and you had sellers that are saying, hey, I can move to my dream home and get 3%. So
yeah.
you had this perfect storm, so to speak, of
Hmm.
buyers and sellers that were just ready to
Yeah.
move. And that's exactly what happened. Then we know what happened after that. The Fed
So
raises the rates, they go crazy. What happened to real estate?
everything is high, everything is inflated, and it's going to deflate. Don't expect
Okay, no,
prices to
no,
go
but
any lower.
I'm talking about the momentum real estate. I'm talking about the
Oh,
volume of real
it
estate.
went to it grind to a halt. Once interest
Yes,
rates started popping up 2 years ago, right now, if you look at this quarter, there's almost no activity. Yeah, almost not much is going on in this last quarter. So, what do we expect with this new presidency? I wouldn't expect anything much to change. Everything's going to happen the way it's happened. The cycle is going to go, and we're going to try to work through this inflation that unfortunately is still very high.
right. So, but again, relating this back to rates, the only way for us to get the, o- you know, for the real estate market to start going, picking up momentum, we need to see rates come down. The Fed made several announcements that they would lower rates. Um, then last month they actually predicted 4 rate cuts in 2024. They gave us one, and right now they could, we may not see a rate cut for a while. We may even see, if we get inflationary numbers, the Fed gets real nervous real fast. And if inflation starts going up again, forget about any rate cuts. So
Yeah.
no more rate cuts. What's that going to do to real estate?
Well, people have to get used to it. People will adapt, and whoever needs to buy a house and is able to afford the payments, they will buy. Albeit, it's going to be a different market. It's not going to be like the one we experienced, where everybody's buying and waiting in lines and bidding wars. But I think real estate will be okay. People still need a place to live.
Okay, so your prediction, Gary, is in that people will get used to it.
Yes.
People will
Yeah.
get used to higher rates. Sellers will sell and give up their 3% interest rate and just decide, I it's time to move on. Um,
That is one segment. Remember, there's a social segment of people who own it free and clear that they need to downsize and I can afford to buy another for cash. So the rate really doesn't play much on it. But this is a case by case scenario. Overall, in the whole economy, we went through this in the 70s and early 80s. So yeah, high interest rate scenario. Um, if you need to buy and you can buy, you rather buy something small rather than not buying at all. I think the market is going to adapt. People will adapt, will resilient, and people will do what is best. But our time is up, though.
Gary, I love your optimism of the American public being resilient and like in the 70s, the market slowed down, but then it took off again. And there were creative ways of getting people to still buy. So I love that optimism, and that's a great place to end this segment.
I wouldn't choose it any other way. Well, Frank, thank you, and I will talk to you next time.
Talk to you later, Gary.